CTV News with Kelly Gregg.
Good evening. With less than a month until Montreal's traditional moving day, advocates are urging tenants to know their rights now before packing up. They say many renters don't realize what protections they have or how to enforce them. Laurence Brisson-Dubreuil reports.
The hardest part may be finding an apartment, but tenants' rights advocate Arnold Bennett says once you have one, knowing your rights is just as important.
There's all kinds of things you can do once you're in, but until you're in, you have no rights.
Repairs not getting done? Bennett says tenants can demand action or turn to the housing tribunal. Paying more than the previous tenant, there's a limited window to seek a rent reduction.
You paid an illegal deposit, you can sue the landlord to get the money back, you could even hold it against future rent. And deduct it, depending on, how dangerously you want to tread with the landlord.
Moving day is just weeks away. And social rights worker Margaret Van Newton says one rule should guide every renter: never feel pressured into signing.
Show it to a housing lawyer or to the Housing Rights Committee before signing.
She also reminds tenants that a landlord cannot simply force them out. She says the practice still happens, often targeting people who have lived in their homes for years.
The main targets of these are usually elderly people who've lived in their dwellings for many, many years, sometimes decades, and their rents are well below the market.
But asserting those rights isn't always simple. In-person services at the TAL require appointments, and Van Newton says language barriers, internet access, and complex procedures can create additional obstacles.
It's really terrible that at this time of a housing crisis and very dire situations for disadvantaged people and their housing rights, that the tribunal has become so difficult to access.
Bennett says those facing urgent deadlines may have to insist on getting help in person.
But of course, they have to let you in if it's an emergency. Sometimes you've got no choice because the deadline, the appointment they offer you is a few weeks away, and you may have a legal deadline of 10 days.
His final piece of advice: keep records of everything. Take photos when you move in, save important communications, and do the same before you hand over the keys. Laurence Brisson-Dubreuil, CTV News.
The number of buyers and sellers in Montreal's real estate market dropped last month compared to a year ago. There were 4,600 residential sales, a 7% decrease from May 2025. The declines were across the board for single-family homes, condos, and duplexes. One Montreal real estate broker says the consensus that interest rates will rise has many people delaying getting into the market.
If you're on the fence about selling, maybe that will just kind of push you towards postponing your sale for another 6 months and another year, something like that. But one thing that I seen, like micro markets, when there's less sellers, that even creates sometimes bidding wars on the few properties that do come on the market. So it's a very interesting phenomenon when you're...
Rising supply and weakening sales are causing market conditions to ease and in some cases clearly favor buyers. A 60-year-old man was hospitalized after being hit by a car in Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. It happened on Papineau at Saint-Zotique just before midnight. The 22-year-old woman who was driving the vehicle was treated for shock. And 3 people are dead after a crash involving a car and four motorcycles in Ontario. Police say an 18-year-old driver collided with the motorcycles around 6 p.m. yesterday. The teenager died at the scene, as did a 72-year-old motorcyclist, while a 65-year-old rider later died in hospital. 2 other motorcyclists, both in their 30s, were injured and one remains in hospital. Police are trying to figure out what led to the crash. With the summer vacation travel season beginning, CAA Quebec has some tips for drivers setting out on the open road. They say some people who don't tow trailers don't get much practice, and all it takes is a little side wind and you can end up swerving. Generally, driving slower will help, so the advice is don't rush and pack the load carefully.
Whether you're going on a camping trip or you're going into parks, it's a question of planning. What do you intend on doing, and what do you intend to use for doing these things? And also, one thing you notice a lot during the summer months, people will pack a lot of stuff in the cars. Keep in mind that every item in your car that is not tightened, that's like behind there, the window, can become a projectile if you slam on the brakes.
He also says if you're bringing pets, make sure to secure them in the vehicle so they don't go flying if you suddenly have to stop. Residents in a part of Ottawa are being asked to be aware after a coyote attacked a teenager. Kimberly Johnson has that story.
A coyote roaming a park in Orleans Saturday afternoon, just days after a 14-year-old was attacked.
He said, "You have to pick me up. I was attacked. And he says, "My leg, it's hurting."
CTV News has agreed not to identify the boy's mother, who says her son was ambushed by 3 coyotes while riding his bike along a path in the Lalonde Conservation Area around 8 o'clock Thursday night.
Coyote at the top here that just started charging at him as he was driving his bike, and then he said he was going so fast that he had like some dust behind his legs that he could see, and then 2 coyotes from the side came.
She says he threw his bike at the larger coyote to escape.
And then he took his helmet and he threw it at the smaller one, trying to get him to dislodge from his foot, but they were still going at him. So then at that point he started to physically try, like with his hands, either by hitting and punching.
He managed to free himself. After attempts to retrieve his bike, the animals continued to howl, growl, and bark, so he escaped by sprinting in the opposite direction.
It was worrisome because, and he is a 14-year-old boy. He is 5'9", 5'10", on an adult-sized bike, and they still went at him.
Officials say coyote attacks are extremely rare. The city says it confirms it's aware of the situation and has been monitoring a coyote den in the area. Over the past few weeks, warning signs have been put up, and the city has asked residents to stay away.
It's a serious concern. We've had issues with the coyotes. We've even changed our walk to school. The kids are a little nervous about it, and we can hear them outside at night.
In this area, we've been cohabiting with coyotes, but with all the construction, we see them more here.
In a statement, Area Councillor Catherine Kitts says the incident has changed the city's approach to dealing with this coyote den. Multiple city departments are actively working together to assess the situation and develop an effective and coordinated response. The boy was treated at CHEO with wounds to his left leg.
I hope it doesn't happen elsewhere because it could be different depending on who it is as well, too.
Kimberly Johnson, CTV News.
Montreal high schoolers are competing in the kitchen for a chance to represent Canada in the culinary capital of the world. Here's Sweet Arasi.
For these high school students, every second counts. 5 teams from different schools are competing in La Table des Chefs National Final. 4 from Quebec, 1 all the way from Manitoba.
These are the 5 best schools in the country.
La Table des Chefs is a free after-school program in more than 300 schools across Canada. It teaches young people how to cook and how to tackle food insecurity by making the most of every ingredient.
20 minutes left.
But spokesperson Ricardo says it's more than just cooking. It's also about building life skills such as problem solving and self-confidence.
Maybe they're not the top in the class in math or French or whatever, but here they're the top.
On the menu today, fish and a smoothie. Time's up. Now it's out of their hands as a panel of judges decides who comes out on top. The winner, Gordon Bell High School from Winnipeg. For one 16-year-old, this program has helped a lot.
So right now, if my parents leave me for a while, I'm not feeding on chips or noodles or something like that. I'm having proper meals.
The team won the national title last year as well, and now they're heading to Paris to face off the French team once more.
The French humbled us, so this time we respect everybody and we're aiming for the revenge.
As they get ready to sharpen their skills and their knives. Sweet Arasi, CTV News.
The World Cup is just days away, and there are still tickets available if you want to go. But how much will it cost you? Well, John Woodward has the answer.
If you've never seen it before, this is tech ball, soccer played on something that looks like a ping pong table. And it's no surprise that these two are big soccer fans too, but you won't find them at a World Cup match.
We want to go, but it's so expensive, the tickets.
What kind of prices were you seeing?
What I see, it's over 1,000 and even more, so...
That's the reputation for these games, four-figure ticket prices, and if you look at many tickets available, that's what's left. We wanted to see what was happening at the resale market on sites like StubHub and also FIFA's own resale portal. For the first game, Canada versus Bosnia and Herzegovina, on StubHub, the cheapest ticket we found on Saturday, about $1,200. On FIFA's resale ticket portal, the cheapest we found was $800. For Ghana versus Panama, StubHub's cheapest offering was $625. FIFA's ticket portal offered $550. It was the reverse for the Germany versus Cote d'Ivoire game. StubHub there was cheaper at $1,200. FIFA's resale site was $1,490. Same with Panama versus Croatia. Their StubHub was $789, while the FIFA site offered almost $2,000. And as for Senegal versus Iraq, it was $489 on StubHub and $542 on the FIFA portal.
Is it a sign the fan interest is waning for the amount of tickets that are for sale?
Yes, for sure. First of all, I feel like for Canadians, it's kind of new still because we're not that much into soccer. To make it popular, something has to be done, and it should be by the ticket price.
Some fans think it's a sign of the times.
Why are the tickets we could find worth hundreds and not thousands?
We have a made in Canada recession right now, and people can't afford it either, right? So, you know what? Do I buy a steak or do I go buy a ticket for $1,200? I have a family.
Even at these lower prices we found, these fans aren't rushing to buy, wondering if prices will dip even more before the first game next week. And if soccer isn't your thing...
How much do tickets to a tech ball tournament cost?
Nothing. You can come for free.
That is, until tech ball really takes off. John Woodward, CTV News.
And now for a first look at your forecast. We're at 18 degrees right now in Montreal, a little warmer outside the city with 19 up north in Quebec City and in the townships. Starting off the week with a mix of sun and cloud, but a nice sunny sky by the afternoon. The forecast high 27. A nearly identical day for Tuesday before the rain rolls in. Showers expected to round out the week. Temperatures, though, remain hot. Coming up, a daring escape caught on camera when a man in handcuffs drives off in a police car. Plus, how a local flight attendant made friends with Rihanna. Louise Arbour will be sworn in as Canada's 31st Governor-General tomorrow. Arbour is a former Supreme Court justice, has also served as United Nations Human Rights Commissioner and Chief Prosecutor at The Hague. She made history when she became the first to indict a sitting head of state, the former Serbian president, for crimes against humanity. And you can watch our CTV News special tomorrow morning at 9:30 Eastern on CTV News Channel and the CTV News app. With separation talk in Alberta, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is kicking off a campaign to promote a unified Canada. He's scheduled to talk tomorrow in Calgary. Jeremy Charon reports.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has been clear about where he stands.
I want a strong Alberta within a united Canada.
And Monday, he'll take that message to Calgary to deliver a keynote speech launching his campaign to promote Alberta staying within Canada. In an excerpt of his speech shared with CTV News, Poilievre has a pitch. We do not need a different country, Alberta. We need different government policies in Ottawa, the excerpt reads.
The majority of Albertans who do think that Alberta has been treated unfairly, that it doesn't get the respect for the contribution it makes to the country, and to have someone speak to that could change the minds of those who are what we call soft separatists.
The speech is expected to call for a change in government policies to address separatist concerns. The answer is not to pull away from our friends in other provinces, but to lock arms with them to make the changes we need, the excerpt goes on to say. The Carney government has signed an MOU with Alberta on a potential pipeline, but Poilievre has argued it doesn't go far enough.
Mr. Coyote is starting to signal to both Albertans and folks in other parts of the country how a better version of federalism could benefit everybody.
Alberta is set to hold a referendum on October 19th that will include several questions, including one related to independence. Poilievre's Monday speech comes on the heels of a similar pitch from Premier Danielle Smith Friday night to a sold-out crowd of her party members.
I've always been clear
that I believe in a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada.
Mr. Poilievre has previously described himself as a strong Canadian federalist and a proud Albertan. Monday's speech will be the launch of what he says will be a cross-province campaign to keep Canada together. Jeremy Charles, CTV News, Ottawa.
Ukraine says Russia deliberately attacked a nuclear fuel storage facility in Chernobyl. Volodymyr Zelensky is calling the strike, quote, an extremely vile attack. Ukrainian officials say a fire was quickly extinguished and nobody was injured, while radiation levels at the site remain stable. Last February, a Russian drone damaged a containment dome over a nuclear reactor. Today marks 100 days since the conflict erupted between the U.S. and Iran. It was marked with new hostilities as Iran fired missiles at Israel for the first time in months. Tom Sufi Burridge has that story.
The Israeli military struck Beirut's southern suburbs on Sunday in, they say, retaliation for Hezbollah firing into northern Israel. Those strikes represent a dangerous moment for talks between the U.S. and Iran to end the war, as well as the already tenuous ceasefire in the Gulf and around the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. military this weekend saying it's shot down 2 more Iranian one-way attack drones, which were threatening ships in the strait.
We're negotiating actively. Things are happening. Shipping is moving through. Iran shouldn't be shooting at it. And when they do, we take care of that, as you would expect. But ultimately, we think a great deal is likely coming soon.
President Trump had suggested an interim deal could be reached this weekend to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and bring down gas prices. But there is still no response from Iran to the latest U.S. proposal. President telling NBC on Friday,
it takes years to do these things. These people have been fighting for 47 years. I'm moving very fast. I'm into 3 months. You know, Vietnam lasted 19 years. I'm into my 3rd month.
And Democratic Senator Mark Warner telling Fox News,
I unfortunately believe that President Trump's war of choice may go down at his biggest folly, because while there has been some incremental progress, we don't have regime change. I think the new crowd is worse than the prior Supreme Leader. We know we don't have the enriched uranium, and I think it's going to be extraordinarily difficult to get it out.
Meanwhile, Iran's top negotiator posting on X today that the naval blockade of the Strait and the Israeli attacks in Lebanon have turned American and Israeli bases and assets in the region into legitimate targets. Tom Sufi Burridge, ABC News in Jerusalem.
A man in Texas who was handcuffed managed to get free and steal the police car, and all of it was caught on camera.
Tonight, a backseat breakout. Police releasing these videos showing the moments a man in custody leaps behind the wheel of a Dallas police cruiser and takes off. Police say last week, 37-year-old Stacy Huffman was arrested after a traffic stop for driving without a valid license and possession of drugs and a gun. Once in custody, Huffman manages to get out of handcuffs and undo his seatbelt before trying to open the door when officers take notice. Both getting out, creating the right opportunity for Huffman.
Huffman climbed into the driver's seat and drove away. Officer Harper was able to enter the rear seat of the vehicle as Huffman fled.
Officer Harper tries to tase Huffman and even hits him in the head with his gun, but that doesn't slow Huffman down.
After traveling approximately 1,000 feet at speeds reaching approximately 50 miles per hour, Huffman opened the driver's door and exited from the moving vehicle.
Oh my God. Officer Harper, steering from the back seat, swerves to avoid hitting another vehicle on the interstate, eventually bringing the squad car to a stop. Huffman was knocked unconscious after he jumped out of the car and was hospitalized for his injuries. The incident now under investigation. Valerie Castro, NBC News.
Dozens of people were injured when a gunfight erupted at a festival in Ohio. Investigators are now asking for the public's help to identify the shooters. Andrew Dimbert has that story.
The urgent manhunt after a mass shooting near a crowded summer festival in Ohio.
It sounds as if there's going to be multiple people shot.
Toledo police say what appeared to be a gunfight between at least 2 shooters left around a dozen injured in the crossfire Saturday evening.
We've got 2 patients. Anyone have any more?
Hundreds running for safety at the 53rd annual Old West End Festival in the city's historic district.
It happened very quickly, but it also stopped pretty quickly as there was a lot of officers that were right there.
Police officers seen applying medical aid to the injured awaiting EMS.
There was quite a few people that need help, and it's a crazy sight to see.
The victims ranging in age from just 14 years old to 61, mostly in their early 20s, at least 2 suffering critical injuries.
I've been to a lot of scenes, but this is way over the top.
Investigators now pleading with the hundreds of attendees to comb through their cell phones for any footage or photos that could identify the suspects.
What happened today is not a reflection of what our city is and what we stand for.
A man was able to sneak on a flight as a stowaway in the U.S. It's raising questions about holes in security, especially since court documents show he had tried to do the same thing twice before. Jacqueline Lee explains.
New details after a significant security scare at Houston's Bush Intercontinental Airport. Authorities saying a stowaway successfully evading multiple layers of security and sneaking onto a flight bound for Los Angeles. 25-year-old Abdul Rahman Oriami is facing a felony charge after allegedly boarding United Flight 469 and hiding in a bathroom. According to the criminal complaint, Oriami got past TSA the morning of May 18th, despite a canceled flight reservation, by allegedly using a boarding pass that authorities allege was forged.
The electronics now that are used by TSA are so sophisticated. So that's one of the big questions here. It's not who failed, it's how the system failed.
Houston police say Oriami approached a gate trying to scan a fake boarding pass twice and was turned away. But an hour later, he walks past busy United gate agents and boards the flight.
Knowing exactly how that distraction can occur so we can make it not occur again is going to be one of the key elements of investigation of this particular incident.
Charging documents allege another passenger notified a flight attendant of a man in the restroom as the plane was taxiing to the runway. The plane then returning to the gate where the FBI, Houston police, and the explosive detection canine unit were waiting. It's just one of multiple recent incidents involving a successful stowaway. In February, Svetlana Dali was able to get past security at Newark Liberty International, sneaking onto a United flight and flying all the way to Milan, Italy, where she was later detained by authorities. Dali had also made it through Newark Airport in November 2024, blending in with a crowd and boarding a Delta flight to Paris without a ticket, passport, or travel visa. As for the Houston flight, authorities say it was full and delayed by 3 hours as a result of this incident. The suspect appears in court on Monday. Jacqueline Lee, ABC News, Los Angeles.
There's been a push from communities across North America to stop constructing massive AI data centers. In Nashville, there are concerns a company is trying to build next to a zoo that could put the animals and the environment at risk. Here's Morgan Norwood.
Tonight, as tech companies scramble to build more data centers across the country,
the community does not obviously want this here.
Growing backlash in Nashville over plans for what would be the state's 23rd data center, a facility larger than a football field next to the Nashville Zoo.
The environmental impact is another thing that we're concerned about. And DC Block has not reached out to us one time to address our concerns.
The project by DC Blocks, a company behind dozens of data centers across the Southeast, raising concerns about noise, power demands, water use, and what it could mean for the animals living just steps away.
They're using massive amounts of electricity, right? We have these rare animals again. We have life support systems. We lose power. It's a big deal for us.
More than 227,000 people signing the zoo's petition opposing it. DC Blocks telling multiple news outlets the facility will not burden local resources and will pay for its own power infrastructure to meet all environmental requirements. But Nashville is not alone. Communities from coast to coast are pushing back against these AI facilities. In Indianapolis, shots fired at a city councilman's home, a note left behind reading "No data centers." And in Utah, entrepreneur Kevin O'Leary admitting he screwed up after residents revolted over his proposed $15 billion project. But the push to build more data centers is accelerating, with supporters saying they bring jobs. Last summer, President Trump signing an executive order aimed at speeding up approvals for large data center projects. Morgan Norwood, ABC News, New York.
And here in Canada, First Nation wants the federal government to review a data center planned for northern Alberta. The Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation says the province is, quote, bending over backwards to support Kevin O'Leary's Wonder Valley project. The community says Alberta is not consulting its members and leadership.
It's one of our biggest challenges right now, like not only First Nations, but the average Albertan, the average Canadian We don't have a robust regulatory system to have these data centers.
Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation says it's meeting with the O'Leary Group tomorrow. There's a continued push for police in Montreal to start wearing body cameras, while officers in Winnipeg will start using them this week in an effort to improve accountability. Jeff Keel explains.
Starting Wednesday, Winnipeg police officers will be wearing cameras to capture video when responding to a call.
It keeps them accountable, and then it gives you another side of the story.
For the sake of keeping everybody transparent, then absolutely.
Over the next 6 months, 40 frontline officers are being equipped with the cameras as part of a pilot project with the aim of outfitting up to 700 frontline officers in 2027. The cameras will be turned on when officers are responding to calls, doing enforcement, during investigations, and when an officer initiates an interaction with an individual. Police say this will hold everyone involved accountable.
We owe it to the membership, we owe it to the police service, and more importantly to the citizens of Winnipeg to show what is happening, how our officers are responding.
The WPS believes this will also improve safety. People may act differently if they know cameras are rolling, and police say the cameras will help prosecutors in court.
This is the best way to ensure that the facts come out.
But some members of the public may have privacy concerns being recorded by police.
I think it's important to be more clear to the public on what happens with the data.
Police say the video footage collected will be secured and the data is owned by the police and no one else has access, adding Canada and Manitoba have strict privacy rules compared to the U.S.
It's protected, it's retained as controlled by City of Winnipeg retention bylaws and only disclosed through appropriate means.
Police will be looking for feedback on the pilot program through public forums and a survey. Jeff Keel, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Still to come, a West Island woman climbs Mount Everest at the same time as she fights for her life. A woman originally from the West Island has reached the highest peak in the world for the second time. She conquered the mountain at the same time she's fighting another battle. Olivia O'Malley reports.
This photo was taken after one of the most meaningful moments in Shauna Burke's life. The 50-year-old reached the top of Mount Everest at 3 a.m. on May 23rd. The milestone comes 2 years after she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer.
When I received my diagnosis, the future did look dark at one point, very dark, and I didn't know if I'd ever have the chance to come back to the mountains.
The Point Claire native and McGill graduate first climbed the world's highest mountain 21 years ago. She was the second Canadian woman to do so. Burke is now an associate professor at Leeds University in the United Kingdom. Her area of research is exercise and cancer. When facing her terminal illness, she became her own case study, subjecting herself to one of the most difficult physical challenges on Earth. 2 people died on the same route she took days before she reached the top.
I think ultimately my cancer diagnosis has really taught me to face into mortality and to come to peace with death and dying. And I think that really helped me on the mountain because there's high risk when you go on Everest.
Before her climb, Burke did chemo, radiation, and eventually had her ovaries removed. Throughout treatment, she continued to prepare.
I maintained exercise throughout all the treatments that I had. I continued throughout my journey. I ran to my chemotherapy sessions. I had my chemo infusion, and then I would walk home.
Good morning, base camp. She arrived at base camp at the end of April. The experienced climber shared every step of her trek on Instagram with the username Dying to Climb. She shared what it's like to summit, including risky days where she wasn't sure if it was possible. The account has more than 10,000 followers, many of whom reached out to share their own cancer story.
I felt like I was climbing the mountain, not just for me, but for them as well. And so it was just quite a meaningful moment to be on the top.
Burke dedicated her climb to people who have been touched by cancer, continuing to raise funds for cancer support in the UK, with the ultimate goal to inspire others, no matter what stands in their way. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News.
With Quebec's health records going digital, there's a concern from the province about who can access those files. It turns out it could be American authorities, including law enforcement. To explain, we bring in Steve Waterhouse, who is a cybersecurity expert. Thanks so much for being here today, Steve.
Well, thanks for the invitation, Kelly.
So this information could be accessible under the Cloud Act. First off, what is that and how does it work?
So that's a bill that came up in the United States in 2018, telling the world that if there is a need for an investigation to get access to someone's information that is being hosted on an American company's infrastructure, so cloud or whatever servers they are, they can then submit that request to that company. Let's say it would be Google, Apple, or Microsoft, and then have their access being given, even if the data is hosted here in Canada, but it is hosted on an American server. So that simplifies the access to that data. Before they had other judiciary mechanisms in place, but that simplified it. But to this day, I can tell you, Kelly, that since the inception of this Cloud Act, there were zero requests put on to Microsoft, and I was having breakfast with Microsoft people last week just to confirm that information.
Well, I mean, that's very interesting that it hasn't been used in that way yet, but it was revealed in a parliamentary commission that before going this information, for instance, about health, going to a secure site, it would be accessible under the Act. What does that mean for Quebecers, that it is accessible even if it might not be used in that way?
Well, I'll go on, and Kelly, and say it's an overblown concept that now people just focuses on the health records that could be accessible by the American government. Before this can happen, again, I stress to the impact of there's an investigation, and there will be a warrant emitted and signed by a judge permitting the access to that information and to a specific need. It's not just a free pass to that buffet of information or data that is spread around. So to that extent, we're considering right now, we're talking in this interview about the access to medical files, but what about the everyday correspondences that are happening in an M365, let's say, typical Microsoft environment? What about the location data from iPhones that any public servants is using right now? These would all be susceptible to a Cloud Act access to information request if that would be the case.
Well, to that end, a sub-minister for the Quebec Cybersecurity Department said there's a, quote, toxic dependence on American tech giants. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that, because when I was in office in 2022 as the Assistant Deputy Minister of Cybersecurity for the province, we had these talks, we had these discussions, because what it was aimed and what was targeted with that comment was the heavy increase of prices for licensing, let's say for virtual capabilities like VMware got bought by Broadcom, and Broadcom multiplied by 5 the prices of licenses. So definitely there is that preoccupation on the dependency of American technologies, and the European Union, specifically Germany, went on and just said enough with supplying the Microsoft licensing environment with 200 million euros per year, and they just said, okay, we're going to be cutting our ties with the technologies, mainly Microsoft Office, and they went on with an open source version of it, which is called LibreOffice. And in Germany, they just went on, they designed their own cloud and just said this is how it's going to be from now on. So definitely the term toxicity is because here in North America this is how it's always been, but there is right now the conversation that we have, the time it is to have that conversation and say, how can we part of it? But it's going to be difficult, Kelly, because the federal, provincial, and municipal governments across the country are totally dependent upon Microsoft, just to give you this example.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to leave it there for now. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time today. We appreciate it.
Anytime.
Up next, keeping Canada's snowbirds in the sky. In case you missed it, Quebec's strawberry season is off to a late start. Farmers say the cold spring is to blame, but there is a sweet side to that delay. Angela McKenzie explains.
Out in one of her strawberry fields here at Ferme Forget in Laval, Rebecca Lamontagne sees the first berries beginning to appear.
We only grow strawberries that arrives end of June, beginning of July. I think we are like a few days late.
With the cold spring, Quebec strawberry producers are up to 5 days behind schedule. But there's a silver lining. They're getting sweeter berries and plenty of them. Like these, an early variety grown on a neighboring farm.
They're gorgeous. The taste, the quality of the fruit, really, they're gorgeous.
We should be seeing field-grown strawberries in grocery stores by early next week, says Jasmine Sauvé, General Manager of the Quebec Strawberry Growers Association.
When the spring is cool, it gives the time to the fruit to develop their sugar and their sweetness slowly, which typically will produce fruits that are a little bit more sweet than the usual.
Quebec strawberry industry has more than 350 growers, and the vast majority of the berries are sold within Quebec. Hail caused minor damage at Ferme Forget, but some farms were hit much harder. Sauvé says increasingly, climate change is making the growing season unpredictable.
Either there's too much rain, it's too cold, it's too warm, so it's hard to have a standard season right now.
That's why many family farms like this one produce a variety of crops to get them through the year.
If there's a frost and then we lose all our strawberries, well, we can have raspberries and squash and pumpkins.
But their strawberries are a sweet favorite, and in a few weeks' time, these fields will be filled with fruit and families.
They like to just come in the field and eat some and have the juice.
Satisfying cravings for a sweet taste of summer. Angela McKenzie, CTV News.
And with summer outdoor activities in full swing, mosquitoes can be an annoying problem. But health officials in British Columbia are also concerned they could be a health risk. Penny Davlos reports.
On a day that feels like summer is already in full swing, BC CDC workers are scouting out locations in southwestern BC.
This might be a good spot
to lay traps for mosquitoes.
Did update what kind of mosquitoes do we have there? Are there anything changing? Is there anything new abundance-wise?
A big focus is sea to sky country from Squamish to Pemberton, where 4 kids got really sick with California serogroup viruses in 2024. Last year they found infected mosquitoes, but no one was seriously ill.
It's hard to tell this year. And really, it just depends on so many things, including the habitat for the mosquitoes, what mosquitoes might have come into the region, whether the virus survived throughout the winter.
In this part of the world, we generally tend to just look at mosquitoes as more of an annoyance than anything else. But the reality is that they can be carriers of some very serious diseases. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control calls them the world's deadliest animal for spreading everything from dengue fever to malaria to chikungunya. Mosquitoes carrying West Nile virus have been detected in nearly all U.S. states this year.
Because of climate change, you're going to see an increase in mosquitoes in general. So availability of that habitat is now opening up to mosquitoes that are slowly working their way north.
At this point, public health in BC isn't raising the alarm just yet.
The risk of getting severe illness from California serogroup virus or other mosquito-borne diseases is low. People should continue to go outdoors, enjoy nature, but you can take some simple measures to protect yourselves against mosquito bites when you're out there.
And dumping outstanding water around your home to quash breeding grounds for a tiny but troublesome creature. Penny Davlos, CTV News, North Vancouver.
After learning the Snowbirds will be grounded at the end of this season, advocates have launched a campaign in an attempt to keep the team in the air. Donovan Mace reports.
Brian Swidrovich organized Saskatoon's Canada Remembers Air Show for more than 20 years. Often flying at the event, the Snowbirds.
It's not just at air shows, it's all the other stuff that people, I guess after a while you take it for granted. It's like anything else. Maybe there might not be a next year.
His support for the Air Squadron earned him the title Honorary Snowbird. And now he's hoping to give back that support after news the team will be grounded.
I'm as concerned about their future as anybody.
On May 19th, the federal government announced plans to replace the Snowbirds' current Tudor jets with new aircraft, grounding them at the end of this airshow season until at least the early 2030s.
I saw the Snowbirds when I was
10 years old at an air show, and then later on, it became my career.
Snowbirds alum Maurice Carmichael believes by not flying, the team is at risk of losing its experience and wants to find an alternative solution to fill the gap.
Perhaps reducing to 7 airplane, reducing the length of the show, the complexity of the show, and using some of our partners, making it a true Canadian team approach.
The Alumni Association launching a letter-writing campaign to keep the team in the air. The city of Moose Jaw, home of the Snowbirds, has already pledged its support.
We just need to, firm that message up that the Snowbirds are ours, they belong to everyone, and we need them to keep going.
Swidrovich says every letter counts.
Everybody has a story and a memory and about what the team means to them. And I've got lots of them, obviously. So take the time, write a letter to your MP.
The Snowbirds' final show is scheduled for this October in California, with many hopeful it won't be the last. Donovan May, CTV News, Regina.
A group of Canadian biologists captured stunning video footage of cold water coral near Newfoundland's Grand Banks. Garrett Barry shows us more.
See, for the first time, these secrets of the sea.
For me, it's like watching a different movie every time the video and the camera comes up.
Hundreds of kilometers off the coast of Newfoundland and hundreds of meters underneath the surface, these ancient cold water corals have never been seen before.
It's pitch black going through the water column for the longest time, and then all of a sudden this vibrant and textured landscape comes into view.
Until now.
You see something brand new that's never been seen before. It really gasses you up and keeps you going.
Isabelle Jubenville was on the Polar Prince for an expedition between Oceania Canada and DFO. The team captured this footage using a drop camera system, bringing light to these mysterious and incredible creatures.
Because they grow so very slowly, they actually hold a record of geological history in their tissues. So, different isotopes of elements that exist in different quantities over time, that's actually registered within the structure of the corals.
A living history book. And these are the building blocks of the ocean.
They give us an answer as to why the waters off Newfoundland and Labrador are so rich, why we have such a long history of commercial fishing, almost 500 years, if not longer.
Now, researchers with Oceania are in Ottawa tonight to show off what they found at this southern Newfoundland slope, sharing this find and maybe highlighting what's out here, what might be worth further study and protection. Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
After the break, how a man turned himself into a walking world record at the Montreal Tattoo Show.
Breaking news and local news that matters to you. Download the CTV News app right now by scanning the QR code on your screen using your smartphone. Or you can also go to our website, ctvnewsmontreal.ca.
Pop singer Rihanna recently got a gift and a language lesson on a flight from Toronto to Montreal.
This sweet lady gifted me with something very special that I would never forget.
One of the Air Canada flight attendants was Lily Ganaradio Daiboost from Ganawage. She gave the singer a beaded lanyard and a quick lesson in how to say a few words in Mohawk.
Conversation was so organic. Like I'm telling you, it was just like talking to one of my friends that I've had for 10 years. It was just like such an easy flow conversation. We joked around a little bit about other things, and yeah. The most common thing that I found on my social media, people are asking her, like, what did she smell like? That's hilarious, but she did smell really good, but can't identify what her perfume was. But I'm, as opposed to some of my other travelers, yeah, she smelled really good.
In other news, the annual ALS Walk took place today in Pointe Claire's Voyager Park. People gathered to raise awareness and funds for the disease, which robs people's ability to walk, speak, and breathe. The ALS Society of Quebec says 80% of people die within 5 years of diagnosis, and there is no cure for the disease.
The impact on the family, not just the person living with ALS, their caregivers, their family members, their friends, it affects everyone. And so ALS Quebec is there to support families at every stage of the disease, and it's events like this that really unites our community.
The minute you find out you have ALS, you never know what's happening next, what's coming next, how long something's going to be, how long the disease is going to be, what muscles are lost next. So our whole life kind of was an upheaval.
And finally, it's a milestone etched in more than just the record books, but also in skin. Pierre Martel now holds the record for most signatures tattooed on a human body. Since Friday, people have been signing his skin at the Montreal Tattoo Show, which were then permanently inked on. Last night, he broke that record with the 274th name, and he's still going with more people signing today. He'll continue in August in Quebec City. Now for a final look at your forecast. 18 degrees in Montreal right now with a mix of sun and cloud, 19 up north and in the townships. That sun will stick around to start the week. Clouds will clear out by mid-morning, the high 27 degrees. A near carbon copy for Tuesday before the rain rolls in on Wednesday. Temperatures, though, remain close to 30. That is it for us. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening and take care of each other.